Well, Tom Switzer is a research associate at the US Studies Centre at the University of Sydney, and he joins me now. Tom Switzer, it's been quite a volatile race for the Republican nomination. Do you think that Newt Gingrich has the power to win it?
I do indeed. I think that we all know that the campaign for the Republican presidential nomination has come down between two people all along. It's always going to be Mitt Romney, the establishment candidate, versus anybody but Romney, and that person would be the Conservative candidate. We've had several Conservative candidates who have been lining up against the former Governor of Massachusetts, and they've all comprehensively failed. Michelle Bachmann, Rick Perry and Herman Cain, who just bowed out over the weekend. Gingrich is just the latest, but I think his timing is perfect. He has a wealth of experience, a lot of knowledge. There are a lot of doubts about him, to be fair, but he is the guy who will carry the Conservative faithful through the primaries.
Well, it's interesting because there are some question marks about him. He has written a lot of books, he's written a lot of policy papers, and he's got plenty of material to sort of trip up on. He's also got a couple of marriages behind him as well.
That's right.
Tell us a little bit more about this bloke who could be the Republican nominee.
Yeah, well, look, there are many strengths. I mean, he has written 20 books. Now, that is certainly something to behold. Writing 20 books, a lot of them have been flops, but some of them have sold very well. He is an historian. He did his PhD on, of all things, a Belgian education policy in the Congo from 1945 to 1960. He's a highly intelligent guy.
Exactly.
Yeah, and unlike a lot of these other candidates, he's highly intelligent and he's a very good debater. Bill Clinton over the weekend gave an interview to the PBS NewsHour that was screened on SBS on Saturday, and he made the point that he enjoyed working with Newt Gingrich when President Clinton was in the Oval Office and Gingrich was the Speaker of the House. He says he's very good on foreign policy. But there are these flaws. You mentioned the fidelity issue. While he was prosecuting the impeachment case against Clinton, it was revealed that he was having a fling, signs of double standards. But also, there's also been ethics violations when he was a House Speaker. He was also, in the last few years, giving advice to Freddie Mac, and he earned about $1.5 to $2 million in consultancy fees from Freddie Mac. Now, Freddie Mac is one of the two big government mortgage brokers in the United States that many Conservatives criticise for being responsible for the subprime mortgage crisis and the global financial crisis. So these are things he has to wear. But the fact of the matter is he is intelligent, he's articulate, and I think he's got the Conservative base behind him. And Romney is hurting. He's bleeding badly, as that poll suggests.
Well, it's interesting about Mitt Romney because we've got less than a month before the first vote is cast in the Iowa caucuses. And throughout this whole process, Mitt Romney, as you say, had been considered one of the firm favourites. But his support just seems to seesaw. Do you think that he's still got what it takes to see off this challenge from Newt Gingrich?
I really don't. I think that he represents the liberal wing of the party, which is pretty much an endangered species these days. I mean, the centre of political gravity in the Republican Party in the post-Reagan era has decidedly moved to the right. Romney represents a different era. His father was a Rockefeller, a Republican named after a liberal governor in upstate New York. He is just, tainted with this liberal image. And then worse, he's trying to reach out to Conservatives, but it seems so artificial. I mean, there was a Democratic National Committee advertisement that was just put out that's just damaging on about 10 different issues. He flip-flops not just within 4 years, but within a week. Highly damaging to Romney. The Conservative Party faithful wants a consistent warrior who's prepared to give them ideological red meat, and Romney's not that guy.
But up until now, if we look at some other former frontrunners, we've seen Herman Cain, Michelle Bachmann, Rick Perry. They've all been these so-called Tea Party favourites, Conservative favourites, and at each hurdle they seem to have faltered. I mean, is it not possible that another Conservative favourite, Newt Gingrich, might also, befall the same fate?
Look, that's a very respectable school of thought. And numerous prominent columnists such as George Will and Charles Krauthammer and the Wall Street Journal editorial page have their fair share of doubts about Gingrich. But the fact of the matter is, timing is everything in politics. There's only less than a month before the Iowa caucus, then you have New Hampshire, and then South Carolina. Gingrich is starting to get a lot of money. He's getting an organisation. He never had an organisation after July when his campaign flopped. So the timing is everything. But the most important thing is a lesson that Richard Nixon gave to Bob Dole about 40 years ago. He says to win the Republican nomination, you need to move hard to the right to win over the hardcore base before moving to the centre. I think that Romney can't do that. Gingrich can, but what Romney probably can do better than Gingrich is moving to the centre in a general election. That's when the test is on.
Well, so a final question. If you think that Newt Gingrich is going to be the Republican nominee, can he beat President Barack Obama?
I think he can, but it'll be very tough to win over swing seats in swing electorates that are pretty much focus on more independent voters. These are people who are fairly social on social issues, liberal on social issues and fairly conservative on economic issues. It remains to be seen. One thing that Gingrich does have up his sleeve is the economy. Although there was a fairly modest improvement in jobs report last month, the economy is still not doing very well. It's stubbornly high at 8.6 unemployment. Debt's pretty high. He's got that in his favour.
It's certainly an Achilles heel for the President.
Indeed.
Tom Switzer, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Kim.